For our case study, we examined the Rohingya crisis in Myanmar from 2015 through present day. Our group members include Sydney Shea, Sage Teasley, Tessa Curry, Pravina Ferns, and Sama Ahmed. First, we'd like to share a quote from the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in September of 2017. He states, "In Myanmar, another brutal security operation is underway in Rakhine State, this time apparently on a far greater scale. According to UNHCR, in less than 3 weeks, over 270,000 people have fled to Bangladesh, 3 times more than the 87,000 who fled the previous operation. Last year, I warned that the pattern of gross violations of the human rights of the Rohingya suggested a widespread or systematic attack against the community. The current situation cannot yet be fully assessed, but the situation seems a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. The Rohingya people are not recognized as one of the national indigenous races of Myanmar. They face a history of racial discrimination in the region. In 1982, a new citizenship law was passed that essentially rendered Rohingya stateless by neglecting to include them in the list of citizens. As a result of this, the Rohingya are denied state education and civil service jobs. They are also denied mobility. They are not able to travel or leave the country without government permission, despite them not being Myanmar citizens. They have been pushed to the northwestern coast of the country, where the poorest state is, living in ghetto-like camps. Because of ongoing violence, the Rohingya have been fleeing over the course of many decades. During times of heightened tension and increased violence, the Rohingya are subject to widespread rape, torture, arson, and murder, all at the hands of Myanmar security forces."
This is a timeline of events that led up to the Rohingya crisis and are still ongoing today. So many of the Rohingya claim to have settled in Myanmar in the 8th century, but many actually moved to Myanmar, specifically the Rakhine State, in the 18th century due to the Burmese conquest, and then again in the 19th century seeking work in agriculture. Then in the 1960s, the term Rohingya was lost, and the government started referring to them as Bengali, giving them immigrant status. In 1962, the Burmese Socialist Party seized power and dismantled all of the social and political groups of the Rohingya after Burma's independence. In 1982, the new citizenship law was passed that prevented the Rohingya from accessing citizenship. They were left stateless. In 1984, proof that one lived in Myanmar before 1984 was needed to obtain citizenship. And then in 2013, for more recent events, the Myanmar government conducted an ethnic cleansing campaign against the Rohingya. Ethnic cleansing is a term often used to refer to the forced removal of any ethnic or religious group by intimidation or violence. And then in very recent events, almost a week ago, in 2018, for more recent news, the Holocaust Memorial Museum revoked Myanmar's state councillor, Aung San Suu Kyi, her Human Rights Award. She was failing to acknowledge the ethnic cleansing of the Rohingya in her own country, so they revoked her award.
As seen by looking at the timeline, this ethnic conflict between the minority Rohingyas and the majority Buddhist people of Myanmar has been going on since Myanmar's independence. This is showcased by this interview with a Rohingya refugee who says, quote, "It's been happening since our grandfather's time." The current conflict is characterized by massive forced displacement and what international organizations are now calling genocide. While Rohingyas have been fleeing Myanmar for decades, as seen in the map on the right, around 603,000 people have fled to neighboring Bangladesh since August 2017. The United Nations estimates that every day about 10,333 people arrive in the refugee camps located on the Bangladeshi border. As seen in the graph on the left, the magnitude of the refugee crisis here is larger than the refugee crisis in the Mediterranean, which is given much more media attention. Doctors Without Borders estimated that at least 6,700 Rohingya were killed in August 2017, and at least 2,700 more died from disease and malnutrition. These figures are in stark contrast to the official government death toll stated to be just 400. As you can see in this 5-stage diagram, the first 4 stages of genocide, stigmatization, harassment, isolation, and systemic weakening, have been occurring since the 70s. There is controversy over whether stage 5, mass annihilation, is already occurring today or if it is simply on the horizon. Just last week, on March 7th, the Prime Minister of Myanmar had several of her honors and awards for peacekeeping revoked for her handling of the Rohingya crisis in her home country. This is definitely a current event. Thank you for listening to our presentation on the Rohingya crisis.